All right. In this lesson, we will focus on culture and its traditions. That's the title of the unit. But in this particular lesson, we'll talk about cultural contributions to the North Carolina regions. As we know, there are three regions in North Carolina. Over here, we are looking at the mountains. In the middle, we're looking at the Piedmont, which are where your larger cities are, and which is where we in Iredell County reside. And of course, on the eastern part of the state, it's called the Coastal Plains. And that's where we find our beaches, Outer Banks, and uh, a lot of lighthouses and things like that. The Common Core standards that this lesson addresses talks about how the settlement of people from various cultures affected the development of regions in North Carolina. More specifically, we'll discuss the types of languages, foods, and traditions that were introduced by the migration of new immigrants. And later in the lesson, you will also be able to read a reading passage about North Carolina Native Americans and their historical contributions to North Carolina. This is a map of the early day North Carolina. As you can see, the eastern part of the state was developed first, and as we move further west, and as we advance through time, we find the western counties are developed. So let's jump right into the PowerPoint. Okay, the big idea is how have different cultural groups affected the lives of all North Carolinians. Okay, that's kind of what I want you to focus on as we travel throughout this lesson. To activate prior knowledge, we all know what cooking, music, storytelling, art, and festivals are, but we need to understand that these aspects or these forms of tradition were introduced by people that we don't see today. They were the early settlers of our state. So let's just dive right in. Okay. North Carolina, we celebrate festivals, holidays, and things like that, but we need to understand that it was through the customs of immigrants that account for why we share and celebrate festivals and holidays in the manner that we do now. We know what a holiday is. A holiday is a day set aside to remember a special personal event, like the 4th of July. We always think about fireworks when we think about the 4th of July, and it's our way of displaying our love for our country. In North Carolina, though, we have specific holidays that honor and celebrate important events throughout our state. On April 12th, we celebrate the Halifax Resolve, and on May 20th, we focus on Mecklenburg Declaration Day. And we'll also, in another lesson, dive into the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and compare it to the United States Declaration of Independence. A few national holidays and when they're observed. Memorial Day is always in May. Labor Day is in September, and of course, Thanksgiving is in November. The State Fair is also a large celebration in North Carolina. First held in 1853, it was actually hosted by farmers, and it was where farmers would showcase their livestock and any kind of agricultural items. Normally, it was about 5,000 people who attended, but at today's fairs in Raleigh, almost 1 million people attend, so quite a jump. You need to understand that agriculture was the main commodity in North Carolina, and there was a lot of emphasis and celebratory events placed around agricultural themes just to spotlight why our state was so economically productive. And at this fair, you could also see crafts and enjoy different foods of other cultures. Festivals are what you call local celebrations. In Raleigh, Charlotte, and Asheville, New Year's Eve is a big festival. This is where they invite any kind of residents in the neighboring counties and towns to come out and celebrate with food and entertainment. Other festivals celebrate local history and traditions. Depending on where you are geographically in the state, your county or city may host maybe parades or different festivals to honor important aspects of that particular area. In lesson 2, we'll talk about the art traditions. If you hadn't ever been to Cherokee in the western part of the state, which is also in the mountains, American Indians heavily populated that area. They were also known for their craftsmanship. I can remember going into many Native American retail stores and seeing moccasins and canoes made out of wood, flutes, and things like that. And all of these things were constructed by hand. You need to understand that in the 16, 17, and 1800s, they didn't have the luxuries of mechanical um, tools and things like that to construct things that we make today in bulk. It took them maybe days just to make one of something. For example, making a pottery dish. That took some time. You know, you just couldn't put that together in an hour and then in the end of the day's time, ship a case off somewhere like you can now with machines. But back in those days, things had taken more time. They were very self-sufficient. American Indians and other settlers of that time learned to do things on their own. They learned to make their own cooking tools. They made their own houses, which were made out of teepees, which were called teepees, made out of hay and sticks and things like that. Um, and they too have celebrations and festivals that honor the gods and things that they serve. They were also experts in basket weaving. They would make basket out of reeds, grasses, or wood. Quilts was also uh, a hot commodity in those times, but those were normally made to symbolize important features of a family and or to provide warmth. And glass making, which was done by heating sand and other materials, was also a big craft made in that time. Music and dance, we're all familiar, but music and dance were also popular in the early days. You got to understand there was very little to no technology. There was no computers, no cell phones, no radios, anything like that for quite some time. So they had to kind of find entertainment in the best ways. It is through the contributions of the English, Irish, Scottish, and African early settlers that we have what we call music traditions today in North Carolina. Most of your traditions can be found in the Appalachian Mountains. Banjos, guitars, fiddlers, and other instruments are used to make the music. Most of these instruments are used in the music genre bluegrass. So that's kind of where bluegrass's roots start from. The shag is a style of dance that grew out of dances that were popular in the early 1900s. It's normally done to beach music. Again, beach music has its roots in blues, big band, and rock and roll from the 1960s and earlier. There's an American Dance Festival held in Durham, and it's dedicated to modern dance. So again, as you can see, these festivals date way back to the current times, and it's designed to honor the early aspects of our state. Supporting the arts in 1947, we opened the North Carolina Museum of Art, and this museum is funded by the state. Winston-Salem in 1949 formed an art council, which is also the oldest in the country. Charlotte, Greensboro, High Point, and Raleigh did too afterwards. These particular cities are located in the Triad region, that middle portion of the state. These are the Triad, the Piedmont region is also where your largest cities are located. And the North Carolina School of the Arts was founded in 1965. It teaches classes from middle school to college. And this is a class who specializes in artistic training. More traditions in North Carolina. The Mint Museum of Charlotte is one of the oldest art museums in the state. The Symphony Orchestra was formed in 1932. It even has a child's concert division. And of course, the Lost Colony, which is an outdoor drama, can also be viewed on Roanoke Island. So as you can see, there are many types of artistic dramatizations that have been contributed by early settlers that we still celebrate today. So as we wrap up art traditions, can you answer this question? Why are art traditions an important part of North Carolina's culture? Think about why we honor art traditions. Think about what we do when we honor aspects of artistic expression. Think about how we use it in society today. So all of that, that entire thought process should inform your response to this question. Now let's talk about cultures and the regions, okay? So in this particular part of the lesson, we'll talk about how various cultures contributed to certain geographical areas of the state, which is why that state has its name and the attributes that comes with it. The coastal plain, people here depend on the ocean. So as you can see, they're surrounded by water. Most of their food comes from the water, so they eat a lot of seafood. And in this particular region of North Carolina, uh, seafood is a hot commodity, and it plays a big role on the state's economy. It adds about 100 million to the state's economy every year. Uh, this particular region of North Carolina also places emphasis on agriculture. The Eatonton Peanut Festival and the Strawberry Festival and the Watermelon Festival are festivals designed to celebrate agriculture. People of the coastal plain work to protect the environment of the region, and that makes sense. If the water and the ocean is an integral part of our environment. So if these guys depend on the seas and the oceans for a source of food, it's quite natural that there'll be environmentalists as well, because the things around the water uh, has a lot to do with the composition of the water. Many coastal communities form decorated holiday flotillas or groups of boats in water parades, and this is one way that they celebrate the environment in the coastal plain region of North Carolina. In the Piedmont region, which is where we live, when your largest states are, we celebrate the Fiesta de Pueblo, the Greek festival, the International Festival. These are festivals that honor the various cultures that inhabit this area. The heritage of North Carolina is shown in many ways. For example, Mecklenburg Declaration Day, which is when Mecklenburg, North Carolina, declared its own independence. And they also host Revolutionary War enactment battles, which is something that's done here in Iredell County at Fort Dobbs, which is also a key part of my unit, which you'll see in future lessons. Another key attribute of Piedmont culture is sports. It's in this region where most of your sports are played. Your college sports, your pro sports, whether it be basketball, football, uh, most of these schools that are very popular are in the Piedmont region. The mountain culture, people of the mountains have culture built on many years of traditions and customs. In the mountains, again, like I said earlier in this lesson, American Indians are heavily populated in this area. Europeans also came from this, migrated to this area. The sales of the arts and crafts in Western North Carolina, which is the mountain area, adds more than 120 million to the region's economy. So as you can see, the crafts and things that are created by the inhabitants of the mountains play a big role and have a big impact on their economy. Many festivals in this area are the Grandfather Mount Highland Games. If you've ever been to Grandfather Mountain, beautiful place. The air is very thin. Your ears will start popping as you're going up there. That's where I was first introduced to rock candy. Some of the games that are played in the mountains are archery, wrestling, tug of war, and caber toss. So as you can see, it's a lot of outdoor games. And Scottish immigrants contributed dancing, fiddling, the harp pipe playing, drumming, and singing when they began to inhabit that area. So as we begin to reflect on what we learned about today, I want you to think about, before you complete your graphic organizer, what cultural contributions are limited to just the coastal plains? What cultural contributions are limited to just the Piedmont? What cultural contributions are limited to just the mountains? And I want you to list those in your graphic organizers. List as much as information as this lesson provided, and this will help you understand the reading that is to come when we explore more history about North Carolina Native Americans and early settlement. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this lesson.